fractions. Our objective for today is we're going to define fraction. We're going to convert different forms of fractions. We'll also add and subtract fractions and multiply and divide fractions. So the materials that you're going to need are Lesson 13 Fractions Practice, so that you can work some of the problems along with me, and a pencil and eraser. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and define what a fraction is. So a fraction is actually part of a whole. And we can imagine these little circles here, that they're pizzas. And so here we have a whole pizza. Here we've got a pizza put in two halves here, but this darkened color here, this just represents one of the halves. So we have one half. Here we've got 1/3 of the pizza, 1/4, 1/5, 1/6, 1/7, and 1/8. And you could keep on dividing if you want to. We can also represent the number of equal parts of a whole. So here we've got 1 out of 1. Here we've got 2 out of 2. Now on the previous slide, we had pictured just one of our halves shaded. And then we also had only one of our thirds, one of our fourths. Now on this slide here, we have 2 out of 2. So we've got 2 parts of equal parts. We have 2/3. Here we have 3/4. 4/5, 4/6, 6/7, and 2 out of 8 pieces of the whole. And I know we've already, throughout our lessons, we've used numerator and denominator, but we're going to use it a lot in this lesson, so I just want to make sure that you understand the numerator's the top part of the fraction, and the denominator's on the bottom. So one form of fractions that we have are the proper form, and this is where our numerator is less than the denominator. So right here we have 2, and that's less than our denominator of 3. And of course that just means 2/3, so two pieces of our pizza. We also have improper fractions. In this case, the numerator is greater than the denominator. So here we have 5/3, and so you can picture your pizza cut into 3 slices, but this only gives you 3. So we actually have to use 2, and you can count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 5/3. And we call it improper just because that's not the way that you actually want to keep it, and we'll learn how to convert those fractions here in a little bit. We also have mixed fractions. Those are going to be a combination of integer and proper fraction. So here we have 1, which is an integer, and a proper fraction of 2/3 combined together. And you can kind of see how we get that. So here we have 3 out of 3 shaded, plus 2 out of 3. So we got 3 out of 3 plus 2 out of 3. That's going to equal, if you take 3, any number divided by itself, that's just 1. So we have 1 plus our 2/3, which we can simplify and write just 1 and 2/3. That's what these equal. So our first exercises are going to be to convert the mixed fractions to improper fractions. Okay, and right here we have 1 and 1/4. And there's a pretty quick way to do this. So what you do is you multiply this number outside, so your integer, you're going to multiply times the denominator, and add that to the numerator. So we're going to take 1 times 4, that's 4, plus 1 is 5, and that's what goes on top. That's 5/4. So we converted a mixed fraction to a improper fraction. Here we've got 3 and 1/3. That one we're going to do the same thing we did a second ago. So we're going to do 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10, so that's what goes in your numerator, over 3. You keep the denominator. So we end up with 10/3, another improper fraction. Here we got 5 and 6/7. So you're going to do 5 times 7, that's 35, plus 6 is going to be 41. So we have 41/7. converting improper fractions to mixed fractions. So we're just going to be going the other way. So here we have question number 4, 5/2, or 5 halves. The way that we actually convert is using long division. So we're going to take 5 and we're going to divide it by 2. So when you take 5 and divide it by 2, you're going to get 2. And then we do 2 times 2 is 4. And then we have 1 down here, and this is actually our remainder because 2 doesn't go into 1. So that's going to be 2. And then we take this 1 and put it over our divisor. So that's going to be 2 and 1 halves. Like this. So that's be our answer for this one, 2 and 1 halves. Here we've got 27 divided by 2. Again, we're going to use long division. So this will be 27. We're going to divide 2 into it. 2 goes into 2 once. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, and we bring down our 7. 2 goes into 7 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. And here we have a remainder of 1. So we can take that remainder and put it on top of our divisor. So we end up with 13 and a half. So that's your final answer, 13 and 1 half. Okay, so let's go ahead and do problem number 6. Here we have 100 divided by 3. So we're going to take 100 and we're going to divide 3 into it. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, we're going to take 10 and subtract 1. That's going to give us 1. Bring down our 0. So now we have 3 going into 10, and it goes in 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. And we're left with a remainder of 1. So we take that 1 and put it on top of our 3. We end up with 33 and 1/3. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at adding and subtracting fractions. Now, one of the main things you need to keep in mind is when we're adding and subtracting fractions is that you have to have a common denominator, which means this number here on the bottom, the denominator has to be the same before you can do your computation. So you must have a common denominator. Must have a common denominator. So let's look right here at our example. So we've got 2/5 plus 5/6. What you do is you cross multiply the 6 times the 2 gives you 12. 6 times 2 gives you 12. And then you've got 5 times 5 gives you 25. So you've got 12 and 25 on top. And then after you do that, you multiply your denominator. And so we've got 5 times 6 gives you 30, and that's going to go underneath each of these. So we end up with 12 over 30 plus 25 over 30. And one thing to keep in mind is you're not going to add your denominators. You only do the computation with the numerator when you're adding and subtracting. So it's going to be 12 plus 25, which is 27 over 30 as your final answer. And we use the same rules when we're subtracting. So again, we're going to cross multiply. So 5 times 5 over here is 25. And then we've got 6 times 2 is 12. And it looks like we have a 6 and a 5 in the denominator again. So all we do is multiply those. 6 times 5 is 30. And that's your common denominator. So 25 over 30 minus 12 over 30. And so all we do is the computation on the top. So 25 minus 12 is 13 over 30, your common denominator. So we're going to do some more exercises. We have 7 through 11. We're going to practice adding and subtracting. Now, one thing that we need to make sure to do is write them in reduced form. So we want to simplify our fractions as much as possible. Also, we don't want to leave any fractions in improper form. No improper fractions, and if you remember, that's where the numerator is greater than the denominator. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at question number 7. Here we're going to be adding 4/6 plus 3/8. So if you notice here, we've got 6 and 8 in the denominator, so we need to find a common denominator before we can even add these fractions. So we're going to do 4 times 8. That's going to give us 32, plus 6 times 3 is 18. And those are going to both go over 6 times 8, so multiply the denominators, which is 48. That will equal 32 plus 18 is 50 over 48. Now here we can actually reduce by 2. We can take 50 and divide by 2 over 48 divided by 2. That gives us 25 over 24. It's reduced, but it's still in improper form. So we're going to have to use long division. So we're going to take 25 divided by 24. And it goes in one time here. 1 times 24 is 24. And then we subtract, we left with a remainder of 1. So we're going to have, put that 1 over 24. So we're going to end up with, I'm going to write it over here so we have some room, but we're going to have 1 and 1/24 is our final answer. Okay, let's look at a nice subtraction problem. Here we've got 8/9 minus 3/9. If you look here, we actually have a common denominator, so this one should be a little bit more simple to do. Like I said, you do your computations only with the numerator when it's adding and subtracting. So we're going to have 8 minus 3 is 5 over 9. And this is reduced. You can't reduce it anymore. And it's a proper fraction, so we're done. Here we've got 1 2/3 plus 5/3. So we do have a common denominator here, so we should be able to add them, but we've got to deal with this one over here first. So what we're going to do is convert this mixed fraction into an improper fraction to be able to add them. So if you remember, we take this 1 and multiply it times the denominator and add that to the numerator to get what goes in the numerator. So we're going to get 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5 over 3. And then we have plus 5 over 3 again. That's going to give us, we have 5 plus 5 is 10 over 3. And here we have an improper fraction, so we just need to divide. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. We're left with a remainder of 1. So our final answer is going to be 3 1/3. Let's look now at question number 10. Here we have 2 6/7 minus 1/6. So right here we've got a mixed fraction, and we're subtracting a proper fraction. So first thing we want to do is go ahead and convert our mixed fraction. It's going to be converted to an improper form first. So we're going to do 2 times 7 is 14, plus 6 is 20 over 7. Okay? And then we're going to subtract 1 over 6. Now here, we can't subtract unless we have a common denominator. Okay? We need a common denominator. So this is going to equal, for a common denominator, we're going to take 6 times 7, okay? 6 times 7 is 42. All right. So 42 is going to be in our denominator. We've got, we'll have 20 times 6 is 120. And 7 times 1 is 7. All right, so we've got 20 over 42 minus 7 over 42. Okay? That's going to equal, we're going to put them all on the same fraction now. 120 minus 7 over 42. 120 minus 7 is going to be 113 divided by 42. And now here we have an improper fraction. So we need to go ahead and do a long division and convert it to a mixed fraction. So we're going to take 113 and we're going to divide by 42. Okay? 113 divided by 42. 42 goes into 113 2 times. 2 times 42 is going to be 84. All right? We're going to subtract. And then 113 minus 84 is going to be 29. All right? So we're going to end up with 2 and 29 over 42. Okay? And this 29 over 42, if we could reduce it, we would. But 29 is actually a prime number, so it's only 1 and 29 go into itself. And 29 doesn't go into 42, so we've got it in a nice reduced form here. Okay? Okay, so let's look at question number 11 now. Here we've got 5/3 plus 6/2 minus 7/5. So we're actually dealing with 3 different denominators that are different. So what we want to do first is, or what I'm going to do, is we're going to add the first 2 fractions. Once we get what that sum is, then we're going to subtract 7/5. So let's work with this part first. So we want a common denominator. All right, and we're going to cross multiply the numerators as well. So we're going to have 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 times 6 is 18. And then on the bottom, we're going to have 2 times 3 is 6 on both of them. And then we're going to go ahead and add those together. So we're going to have 10 plus 18 is 28 over 6. And before we subtract this 7/5 here, let's go ahead and reduce this so it's a little bit easier to see what we have. So we can actually take 2. That's the largest number that will go into both of these. 2 goes into 28 14 times. And it goes into 6 3 times. So what we have now is 14/3 minus 7 over 5. Now it's just a subtraction. So again, we want to get a common denominator. And I'm going to erase this part so we have some room. So now 14 times 5 is 90. Minus, we've got 7 times 3 is 21. Over 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, so we got 90/15 minus 21/15. And that'll give us 69. 90 minus 21 is 69 over 15. And we look to see, before we do our long division, because we do have an improper fraction, let's see if we can reduce it. So if you try out some different numbers in your calculator, you'll see the largest prime number that goes into both of those is going to be 3. So 3 goes into 69. It's going to go in there 23 times. And it goes into 15 5 times. Now it's just a simple matter of your long division. So we're going to take 23 divided by 5. 5 goes into 23. It's going to go in 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. We have a remainder of 3 that we're going to put over our 5. So our final answer up here is going to be 4 and 3/5. at multiplying fractions now. The rule with multiplying fractions is that you multiply both the numerator and the denominator. And that's unlike when you're adding and subtracting, where you only add or subtract the numerator of the fraction. So here we have an example. We've got 5/6 times 7/3. How we go ahead and multiply these two fractions is we multiply the numerators. So we multiply 5 times 7, and that gives us 35. And 6 times 3 gives us 18. And this is actually an improper form. If you do your long division, you're going to get 1 17/18. Dividing fractions is very similar, except there's one step you have to do at the very beginning. You have to flip the second fraction, and then you multiply. So first step is flip the second fraction. Second step, you multiply the fractions with the rules for multiplying. So here we've got 4/5 divided by 6/7. You flip the second fraction, which is 6/7, and make it 7/6. You don't do anything with the first one, leave it as it is. And then you just multiply them. 4 times 7 is 28. Over 5 times 6 is 30. And remember, we always want a reduced form. You see the largest number that goes into both of these is 2. 28 divided by 2 is 14. 30 divided by 2 is 15. So your final answer is going to be 14/15. So let's do a few problems with multiplying and dividing fractions now. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at question number 12. Here we've got 4/5 times 10/8. So the rule with multiplying is we multiply both the numerator and the denominator. So this is going to equal 4 times 10 over 5 times 8. 4 times 10 is 40. 5 times 8 is also 40. So we can actually reduce both of these by 40, right? 40 goes into 40. So we end up with 1 over 1, which can be simplified to just 1. Here we got 3 2/7 times 8 over 11. Before we can multiply these, we actually have to convert this mixed fraction to an improper form, and then we can do our computation. So what we're going to end up with, we've got 3 times 7 is 21, plus 2 is 23. So we have 23 over 7 times 8 over 11. That's going to give us, we multiply the numerator, 23 times 8, over 7 times 11. That'll be 23 times 8 is going to be 184, and this is one, if you needed to do calculator, you can, over 77. And here we've got an improper form, so we need to do our long division. So we're going to take 184 and divide it by 77. 77 is going to go into 184. You can use your calculator if you need help, but it's going to be 2 times. 2 times 77 is going to be 154. And then all we do is just subtract, so we end up with 30. So our final answer will be 2 and 30 over 77. And so if you notice, we don't always have nice, pretty answers. Sometimes you're going to get answers like this, and actually in real life, most things are not nice and pretty numbers. So your final answer is 2 and 30 over 77. Let's look at question number 14. Here we've got 6/3 divided by 2/5. Do you remember the first step? Hopefully you remember that you're going to be flipping the fraction and then the second fraction, and then we multiply. So this is going to give us 6/3 times, flip the fraction, so 2/5 turns into 5 halves. So times 5 halves. That's going to equal 6 times 5 over 3 times 2, which equals 6 times 5 is 30, divided by 6. Here we have an improper fraction, and we can do our long division, but this one should be a simple division for you. 6 goes into 35 times, right? We have no remainder. If you want to do this all out, you can. But anyways, our final answer is just 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at our last problem here. We've got question number 15, 7/8 divided by 7/6. So our first step, of course, is to flip the second fraction and multiply it. So we're going to take 7 over 8 times 6 over 7. 7 times 6 is 42. Over 7 times 8, it's 56. And then we look to see, can we actually reduce this? And you could start dividing some numbers into these and see what you find. But 14 is going to be the largest number that goes into both of those. 14 goes into 42 3 times. And then we can reduce 56, 14 goes into that 4 times. So our final answer is 3/4. Okay, so now that we've finished reviewing a little bit about multiplying and dividing fractions and adding and subtracting fractions, I want to go back to question number 2, and I want to explain to you why we're allowed to convert this mixed fraction. I told you to multiply the integer times the denominator and add the numerator. That's kind of a shortcut. So I want to explain to you why we do that. So first of all, let's just see what we got in that answer. What was it? 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So we had 10 over 3, okay, as our improper form. But why this works is this 3 1/3, that actually means the same thing as 3 plus 1/3. It means the same thing. And this 3 right here, this integer 3, can be rewritten as 3 over 1, and then we're doing plus 1/3. Now, we know when we're adding fractions, we need a common denominator. So we have to do our little conversion here. So we do 3 times 3, which is 9, plus 1 times 1 is 1, over, both of those are going to be over, 3 times 1, which is 3. And now we know when we add them, we're just going to get 9 plus 1 is 10 over 3. And of course, it's longer than doing it this way, so a lot of times we just use our little shortcut here. So that brings us to the end of our lesson. What I'd like you to do now is go ahead and go under the resource section of the course. And I've got a small video clip there. It's under lesson 13, and it's titled Fraction Multiplication with Rectangles. And the video actually explains a nice virtual tool that you can use to aid in your understanding of fraction multiplication. After that, I want you to go ahead and download your lesson 13 fractions worksheet and try to do the problems on your own. And then afterwards, watch the accompanying video, and I'll work the problems out with you. I will see you then.